Yes,
Hi,
I
good
see.
morning, everybody. Welcome to our Facebook Live. Today, I've got Freddy van Rensburg with me.
Good morning.
Freddy is a counselor, and we're going to be talking about talking to kids about sex. And just to give you a bit of context why I'm doing this live video, it is because a few weeks ago, I posted on my page asking moms to give their opinion on when the right time to talk to kids about sex, what the right age is. And the majority of the answers were 15 years old, which for me gave me a bit of a fright. And I'll share a bit about my personal experience so you know why. So yes, I asked Freddie to join me. Freddie's a good friend. We've got a bit of history, not that sort, but yeah, we've got a bit of history, and I really thought Freddie would be a great person to come and share with me on the page. So I just want to also remind you all, if you take part, let me just put my little ticker up. Yes, if you take part in this discussion, either via the comments or actually by signing up to come live with us on video to share your opinion and to ask questions, you can win a 100 Rand Takealot voucher. So you need to join us in the comments, and this is live on my Facebook page, Kaboki, and on my YouTube channel. So yeah, come and join us and let's kind of get into it. So the first thing I want to do is just share with you a little bit of my personal stuff from when I was a teen. Yeah, it's probably going to be a little bit TMI, but I'm just going to get in there and say it. So when I was a
think the topic
teenager,
is a bit TMI,
hey,
but it's really important. I think the topic is a bit TMI, but it's a very important topic. So I think that today is about a frank, open discussion. So go for it. We need to
well,
hear.
that's it, you know. And the thing, Freddie, is that I've got a daughter and a son, and I would like to think that they're both going to abstain from having sex until they're 20 years old, maybe 30.
Let me know how that works for you.
Morning, Shireen. Hi. Yeah, and you know, like when I think of my little girl, she's 8 now. I want her to stay innocent for as long as possible. I want her to, you know, have sex only after she's married and only with the right person, and only have sex with that one person for the rest of her life. And I want it all to be like clean, you know.
Yeah.
But the thing is, this isn't how it works. This is real life. And what happened to me is I was at a small primary school where everybody knew everybody else and their granny, and I was very innocent. And I then went to a bigger school, and so my primary school was from sub A to standard 5 for people that are not dinosaurs. That is grade 1 to grade 7. And then I went to a middle school, which was actually standard 5, 6, and 7. So grade 9, 10, 11, I think. Yeah. But I arrived in the middle year. And what happened was, I don't know who decided they didn't like my face, but somebody obviously did. And they started rumors about me. And these rumors spread all over the school. And I've shared about this on my addiction blog. And what happened was I got called into my parents to the lounge. They wanted to talk to me, and they asked me about things that they've heard, which is basically that I am having sex, I'm a slut, and that I am giving sexual favors for things. So I'm basically whoring myself out. And one particular incident that really stands out for me is when my parents asked me they'd heard that I had given a blowjob on the school stage behind the curtains, not during like assembly or anything, for a bicycle. And I just remember thinking, what's a blowjob? Why the hell the school stage? Why would I do something weird on the school stage? And where the hell is the bicycle? You know what I mean? And I was just like, I didn't know what was going on. And I went to school the next day, and I had to ask somebody what a blowjob was. And when I found out, the shame that I felt, the absolute humiliation. I hadn't even kissed a boy. I'd never held hands with a boy. I knew what sex was, but I didn't know about all the other weird and wonderful things that can go on, or humiliating things. And, this was my part of my introduction into sex. So for me, it was very shameful. And then in the December holidays, between moving from the middle school to the high school, I was actually raped. The first boy I kissed raped me later on. And so that was my first sexual experience. And it was very humiliating. I was very ashamed. I felt like I couldn't tell my parents because they had already heard that I'm a complete slut for the last 2 years or so. And I mean, looking back, I know I could have spoken to my parents, but that's just kind of what I was feeling. And then a few months later, I was raped again by the family friend of a friend's mother. And from then on, I went off, you know, I kind of went off the beaten path, shall we say, and everything went completely haywire for me. So this was before I turned 15. When I was raped, I was 14 years old. When all these rumors were going on, I was 11, 12, 13. By the time I was 15, I mean, I was on the wrong path, let's just put it that way. So when people say that 15 years old is the age that you should start talking to your kids about sex, I mean, I've got my opinion, I just get this and I think, mummies, you're leaving it too late. You guys, you need to jump in there. You need to look after your girls. You need to teach your boys. You need to do something different. But 15 I'd already been educated in a very bad way. So I saw that post and I saw all the comments and I thought, we got to get in here. We got to have a talk. So yeah, thanks, Serene. Thanks, Eloanne. Yeah, it was pretty rough. But I look at that now and I think, well, hopefully I've got a good education to help my children go on a different path and, you know, to do things differently. So, yeah, that's kind of my personal stuff. And I thought we could get into all the the bits that we need to talk about. So let me hide that and put on the first bit. Okay, so yeah, Freddie, let's talk about sex and shame, because I think, you know, a part of the thing for me was that my parents were embarrassed. I was embarrassed. Everything was so shameful. And I think this is where we've got to start. What have you got to say about sex and shame, Freddie?
I think the first thing we need to accept is that sex is one of the most natural drives that we as human beings have. It is no different than eating and wanting a roof over our head and a warm blanket to sleep under. And we're not ashamed about the fact that we have lunch. Why are we ashamed about the fact that we are sexual beings? I think sex is also one of the natural things given to us by life. And as human beings, we are one of, as far as I know, two entities that, and not entities, I'm thinking about a specific word, and I can't think of the word now. Entities that give life birth. I can't even think of the Afrikaans word now. Yes, mammals that actually have sex. I got it right. Thank you very much. Well done. What's the Afrikaans word for mammals? It's not there.
I can look at my hubby.
And so we and dolphins actually do have sex for fun. It's not just a thing that we do to procreate, and it's definitely not something to be ashamed of. What happens is that through a societal, unwritten societal norm, sex has become something that we are ashamed of. And it's the parents' responsibility in the house, whether they're going to make it something shameful or whether they're going to make it something that can be openly discussed, questioned, and openly answered. And sex does not have to be shameful. When we make it shameful, when we make it something hidden, something not to be discussed, something secretive, something dirty, then there's going to be an element of shame attached to it. And therefore, as adults, as the parents in the house, it's our responsibility to create an environment where sex does not equate shame. One thing that I identify as a sex addict. I struggled with pornography at some stage. I struggled with having sex with multiple partners and those type of things. And a very big theory around sex addiction is that the addiction isn't around being addicted to the actual deed of sex, but we actually become addicted to that feeling of shame, that we get caught in a toxic shame cycle around what sex is and what sex represents in our lives. So if we can open that conversation, make the home a place where sex can be openly discussed, where questions are answered, where children feel free to ask questions and to get responsible, loving, caring answers to those questions. Then we can take the shame out of sex. And once we take the shame out of sex, we can start developing a generation of children who have a healthy relationship with sex. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be promiscuous. It's going to mean that we have a generation of children we have all the facts around it and can make healthy choices for themselves around sex. But if you don't give them the information, they can't make healthy choices.
I think that's very important as well, is that if I'm embarrassed about it and I'm uncomfortable about it, then this is going to come across to my children when I answer their questions. And I think as a mother, it's really important that I am the one, or the father, parents, our guardians, whoever, that we kind of let our children know that there's nothing to be ashamed about talking about sex. It's a normal, healthy thing that people do.
Absolutely.
And I think, the way that you talk to your children is going to kind of be a huge part of, how they understand sex and their relationship with sex. They kind of, you want them to have a healthy mindset towards sex. And part of that is, you can laugh about it, you can joke about it. That's what I do with my kids. And they're like, ew, gross, and we laugh because, sex it can be quite funny, and it can be a little bit gross. But,
never said sex is the most fun you can have without laughing. Never had good sex.
Exactly, and I think it's about just kind of being real with it. So that's the first thing I wanted to look at is, sex and shame, because I feel that most children and teenagers, I just get the feeling that there's so much shame attached to it. I would like to think that my children one day will tell me when they're ready to have sex, and I might have a heart attack actually, but I'd like to think that they'd be able to talk to me without shame and get guidance and advice. I hope. I know for me as a teenager, there was no way I was going to talk to my parents because I was just so filled with shame. It was, that thought was just shocking. There's no way.
Yeah, very, very much so. If I think of my own situation, where from about the age of 5, I realized that I'm different from other people. I didn't know how, but there was this voice of knowing inside me that whatever is wrong with me is something to be ashamed about.
Yeah.
And that what was wrong with me was that I was actually gay, but because sex was never discussed in the house, and I could never ask what was going on in my head and ask the questions and start talking about it. It stayed a secret and a shameful thing the secret stayed until I was 22 years old. The secret stayed until 27, 28.
Wow.
So a very, very unhealthy way to engage with what would always be described as sexual deviancy.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to take us on to the next topic. Let's just show that as a ticker at the bottom. Okay, private parts and touching. Now, I find this very interesting, is that like when I was little, a vagina was a cookie. I can't remember what we called a penis. I think it was a winky or something like that, but we didn't use the correct terms. And I think, the starting point of all of the sex is obviously, the bits. And I read before my kids were born that it's actually really important to use the correct terms for private parts. In fact, I've now read that there was a study conducted, I'll have the link in my blog post, that children who are brought up knowing the correct terms for genitals are less likely to be sexually molested. And part of the reason for this is that if a child knows the correct name for it, number one, if they say that name to the person that is thinking of molesting or, attempts it, it says to them, this child knows and understands about genitals. So it's going to be like a no-go because they are educated and they've been prepared. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that when a child is molested, they need to be able to tell their parents what happened. And apparently I read there was one thing about a girl that was molested, and she went to school, or I think she went to school and told a teacher, and she said, somebody tried to touch my cookie, and the teacher said, well, you've got to share. they don't. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny. If your child is not using the correct term, how are they going to tell an adult what has happened and report this? So there's a couple of things that goes into it. And I also think that, this is part of why do people call it a cookie or a totty or a whatever, a flower? I love that one for a vagina, a flower. Why do you use a different term? I mean, you don't have another name for the ear or the finger, my pinky. I mean, you got a funny name for this. Why? But it's because of the shame that people feel. They don't want to say vagina or penis because, no one talks about that. And I think this really ultimately is the starting point. To say this is a penis, this is a vagina, that's your toe, that's your eye, that's your ear, that's your teeth. It's kind of normalizing it that there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really important.
Very important that word normalize. There's nothing abnormal about having a vagina or having a penis or having sex or growing pubic hair. It's all very, very normal. We should normalize it. There's nothing to be ashamed about it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And then the second thing, at a very young age, so I mean, my personal feeling is when your child asks about it, and I remember both my babies, they loved pointing out all the different body parts. And when my son was born, the first thing my daughter said is, "Oh, look at his eyes, look at his nose," and she touched his nose, and it was so cute. And then I was changing his nappy. She goes, "Oh, Mommy, he's got a tail, like he's a monkey or something." It was really cute. And I just looked at it, I said, "No, that's a penis. He's a boy." But it starts there. It starts at that young age. And I think, it's also really important. And the first thing I said to her is, but that's his private part, like your vagina. So you don't touch that. You don't touch it, and you don't touch his bum or anything like that. I say, I clean it and all when I change his nappy. And I think it's really important to, to start at that age, letting the children know there's nothing to be ashamed about, but that is a private part. So you can touch here and here, but you can't touch there because it's private. And then also on the touching, and I think this is really important. It's not about genitals or private parts or molesting, but it's important to let your child know that if they don't like being touched in a certain way or a certain place, they must open their mouth and say so. Like my son, he says, "Please pinch my bum, Mom." He's very cute. But my daughter, you try hug her or kiss her or just touch her, and she's like, "Don't touch me." I mean, she just doesn't like being touched. My son, I can kiss him, I can cuddle him, I can pinch him and tickle him till the cows come home. But my daughter just does not want to be touched.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to respect that and to let them know you've got a voice. And if you don't like something, open up your mouth and say so. And people must respect that. And I think that builds on the self-confidence. It builds on, all of that stuff that we're trying to instill in our children.
Then you brought up some very interesting thought process with me, and an interesting thing that we could maybe debate, and that is that the concept of private parts, and a lot of parents feel that by being naked in front of their children, like walking around naked in the house, destigmatizes the concept of sex and sexuality. What they don't realize is that if the child isn't ready to be confronted with what they see, that can actually be seen as a form of covert incest.
Sorry, say that again.
That can be seen as a form of covert incest. When we expose a child to visual images of private parts and sexual images and those type of things, that the child might not be emotionally ready to see that type of thing. And it could cause them damage. So a lot of parents feel that yeah, but I walk around naked in the house and my child knows about the development and the private parts and those type of things. There's virtually a dichotomy in terms. If you talk about private parts, yes, we walk around naked in the house. What's private about it if you expose it to everybody in the house? So there needs to be a fine balance between not showing shame for our own bodies as adults in front of our children, and overexposing our children to our own bodies as adults.
Oh, that's interesting, because my husband.
Because what, Lynn? Because what?
My husband is from, it's interesting because my husband is from a very different background. He is Afrikaans, so there's a lot of stuff that's a lot more conservative. And I'm English, and I was brought up in a certain way. I remember seeing my dad naked when I was a kid. And I also remember the day that he stopped coming in to wash his hands in our bath. He used to come in, it was so lovely. Every night he would come home from work and he would walk straight to us. We were always in the bath, and he'd make a big thing about washing his hands in the bath, me and my two sisters, and then he would go have a shower. And then we'd, have supper and everything. And I remember that. And I remember often walking in and seeing my dad in the shower and doing whatever. And I remember a day when he started locking the bathroom door and he stopped coming in to wash his hands. Now, I can clearly now see, okay, we were obviously getting a bit older and we were moving, to a different stage. But now with me, I'm very, you know what, it's my kids. I gave birth to them. I've breastfed them. I mean, really, like, where's the privacy? And I don't have a lock on my bathroom. They just come in. When I get in the bath, they hear the bath water running. They strip naked and they come and they jump in the bath with me. And they're 6 and 8 years old. Yeah. And I'm like, guys, come on. But my husband doesn't, he always gets dressed privately and he won't let them anywhere near him in the bathroom or anything like that. And that's been since birth. He wouldn't even get naked in front of our baby. I mean, they can't see further than this. So they've got the, and they've asked me about it. And they've said, why does Papa always get changed privately? I said, because that's his thing. Everybody has their own understanding of privacy. And if Papa wants to get dressed privately, that's his thing. I say, but me and you guys don't give me the chance.
An important thing here is that you have already kind of indicated to your children that there are things like the vagina and the penis, and the vagina is the female and the penis is the male. So it's not as though they're confronted with something they don't know.
Yeah.
It's when that conversation hasn't happened and the child gets confronted with it, that it could be traumatic for the child.
Yes. Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah. So let's move on to the next item. Have you got something else to say?
From Salone that we might want to just raise, where she mentioned that my son is 12 years old and it was easy to talk to him about sex. He's now 14 going on 15 and it's easy to talk to him about life in general. Lovely. Good to hear. The problem is my daughter is 7 and I don't know where to start talking to her. Oh, wow. You are?
Yeah, I can do that sort of thing.
Look at this. Cool? Look what I can do. Do you have any input for Salone?
Well, my daughter's 8 years old, and look, I think follow your child. And I think my concern now with girls is that they develop a lot earlier than boys. And I believe now that girls start their period and puberty anywhere between 10 years old and 15. That's the norm, 10. And the age is getting younger and younger. So, but there are some girls who've hit puberty early and they've started their period as young as 7, 8 years old. So, the one side is, I think it's important, and I'm going to start, I think the next topic was talking to your kids. My daughter asked lots of questions, and I think it's just about being honest and answering that question. So, for example, my daughter asked me ages ago, she said, "Mommy, how did I get in your tummy?" So I said, "Oh, Papa put you there." Simple, and she said, "Oh, okay, cool." And off she ran. And then a while later, she comes, about a week later, she says to me, "Mom, I just want to know, how did Papa put me in there?" I said, "Oh, he put sperm in there. And the sperm went to the egg and that made a baby." Okay, cool. Off she goes, And it's about, I think, answering the question as honestly and straightforwardly as you can. Just answer what they've asked and leave it at that. Obviously, if your daughter gets to, 10 years old and you've never talked about sex or periods or puberty, I think then you are going to have to initiate that conversation. But my daughter, over a period of weeks, eventually came and said to me, "But how did Papa put the sperm in there?" And I'm like, "Oh." I said, "With his penis." She goes, "Oh, and my husband was horrified that I said that, actually. But we're going to get onto all of that. What have we done? Private parts, touching, and then answer their questions. And I think what's important here is that I know a lot of parents still go and say, "Oh, the stork brought you," and I think it's really important to steer away from that and just to answer the questions as honestly as you can, without shame, without creating all sorts of strange stories and stuff. There's a time for fantasy. That's Christmas and the Easter Bunny and stuff like that. I don't think sex, puberty, and all of that is a time to kind of give tall tales. I think it's literally just answer their questions straight, honest, give them the information that they ask for. And especially because, if you don't give them the right information, let's face it, where are they going to get it from?
Absolutely.
Somewhere else. That's pornography, stuff on the internet. Oh, no. I want them to hear it from me.
Yeah, that's incredibly important. If as parents we don't take that responsibility to give them the information, where are they going to get the information, and how is that information going to be given to them? How is it going to be packaged? So when we take that control as a parent, we can actually manage the process and the package, and that's very important. That we do it, that we take responsibility for it, and do that in a healthy, non-shameful, factual manner.
Yeah, definitely. Because my information didn't always come packaged in the right way.
Definitely not. Definitely.
Yeah. Cool. The next item is discussing puberty. And I think, Anne, this is
yes.
This ties in with what you've been asking about. And I think, I've heard of some girls. I think when I was a child, one of my friends started her period at school. She didn't know what had happened. She didn't have pads or tampons. She didn't know if she was dying, and I just looked at this and I thought, oh God, that is awful. I think before your child starts developing, the girls, they need to know what's going to happen to them. They need to know they're going to start their period. They need to know it's going to cramp a bit. They need to know how to deal with it when it happens. They need to know that their breasts are going to develop, that they're going to get hair, pubic hair, underarm hair, and same with the boys. I can't imagine anything more scary than starting to develop and not knowing what's happening.
Absolutely.
There's going to be raging hormones as well. You're going to add that into the mix. I just think that's really looking for trouble. And also with development, there's also a bit of shame. I remember feeling very embarrassed and very exposed when my breast started developing, especially because I was not a small boobed girl. I had boobs. You know, and people would talk, they would look and they'd look, her boobs are big, her boobs are small, this, you know, and it was very, I remember there was a lot of shame. And I think it's important to address these issues with your child before it starts happening.
Yes, absolutely. I can't agree more.
Pardon?
Don't wait until it. I can't agree more. Don't wait until it happens and then raise it, because then it's too late.
Yeah.
When you see the first signs of puberty happening, have that conversation. Very important.
Oh, I've already had it with my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, they've asked me questions when they've seen me naked. They're like, how come this? And I just say, well, this is what happens. It'll happen to you. It's perfectly fine. You know, so my daughter knows about periods. She knows why you get them. She knows kind of the age and what to expect. What CSE? Hold on. I'd like to know, since we are on the subject, what is your opinion on CSE? We're all kids are together, boys and girls. Shannon, I'm glad you brought this up. And this is something that I mentioned to Freddie a couple of days ago when we were testing the cool software I'm using. I just have to say
very cool software you're using.
And I've heard rumors that there is going to be, I believe sex education needs to come at home and at school, just to clarify that. And I think that it should start at home and it should be continued at school. I don't think that children should first learn about sex at school, because it's my kid. And I think that I'm the one that needs to initiate it and get it going. I would like it to be reinforced at school, but I want it all to come from me first. And I think it is essential that it happens at school, because, you know, think about it. Your kid from Monday to Friday, okay, not now during COVID, but from Monday to Friday, from 8 till 2 o'clock, that's where they are. They were the teacher, and that person and that school is going to play a huge part in your child's education and upbringing, values, all of that stuff. It's going to play a big part. But I've heard that the schools are going to be giving graphic images. They're going to be talking about anal sex. They're going to be talking about masturbation and all sorts of stuff. And this is stuff that I've heard. And I've also heard that they're going to be giving graphic images. I believe that a lot of that is fake news. So I think the schools are going to be doing sex education. They did when I was at school. But it was literally showing a drawing of a male and a female, and it had labels of penis, vagina, testicles, whatever. And then it had, you know, the uterus, and, you know, you learned about periods, you learned about puberty, that sort of thing. And I don't think it's going to be that much different. So if you're referring to graphic images about sex being the images of, you know, the naked body and all the body parts, I don't think that is incorrect. I think that must be learned. But I think the rest is actually fake news, because I don't believe it's actually in the syllabus. Yeah, and no, I'm not going to be happy with my child seeing graphic sex and pornography style stuff. No, I'm not happy with that.
I'm with you on that one. Again, you know, we're talking about we can really call it a form of trauma. Being exposed to graphic things like that in age where the child isn't mentally and emotionally developed for that, then it will cause trauma for the child. There's a question from Shireen Weitz. And Shireen, David's good for you. How's it going? Shireen, my personal feeling is sooner rather than later. That again, as we discussed with the discussion on puberty, is before she starts in showing any signs of development, where that signs of development will become scary for her. Rather address the issue with her before that, so she knows what's waiting, what's going to happen, and that it's okay. That it's not going to hurt, that it happens to everybody, that it's to be expected, it's to be discussed, and that's fine.
Yeah, I totally agree with
that point.
And I think you don't have to address everything at once. I think the easiest way to do it is to, do little bits or kind of initiate something and see if your child is interested and if they have any questions. So you don't have to start with periods and pubic hair and like everything at once. Maybe just say, if your child says something about boobs, you can just say, oh, you'll have boobs one day, and leave it at that. See what she says, see what her reaction is, and kind of, just see if you can spark the interest and start a discussion where she leads and asks questions, and you can see where her understanding is and what she needs to know. You might be surprised. You might know a lot already. I mean, these kids are, they often very much, know quite a bit. Cool. So now the next item, I wanted to make that a ticker. Hide that. Edit it. Scroll it. And
are you just going to do it right now, right here? Is it that easy?
Talk it back. Okay. So talking to kids about sex. So I think this is really important. And, while I want to obviously discourage my children from having sex too early, I think it's about arming them with the correct information. So there's going to be a time where you're going to have to explain to your children exactly what sex is, and what the purpose of it is. So recreational, of course, and procreation. And I think it's important to focus very much, not just on the be careful because you can fall pregnant, you can get a sexually transmitted disease, etc., but also the mental health aspects and the emotional maturity. So, I know that a lot of people believe that sex should be kept until you are married, but let's face it, not that many teenagers do that. Teenagers are going to go out, they're going to have sex. It's not something I want for my kids, but it's, you can't stop it. The only thing you can do, in my opinion, is you can prepare your child as best as possible. And to do that, you need to talk to your child. You can't just say, don't have sex till you're married, and that's that, and this is a rule. I don't know what other children were like, but as a child, my thing was, if my parents told me not to do something, I would literally like, whoop, here's my to-do list for today. Number 1, do that. And, I work better when someone says, if you do this, this is what happens. If you do this, you must be prepared for this. So arm them with information and help them to make the right decision at the right time, guide them, support them. And I think that's basically like really essential.
Absolutely. It's really, really important that when they get confronted with it, that they have the correct information to make the healthy choice.
Exactly. I mean, I'd like to believe that my kids will talk to me before they take that big step. And I'd like to believe that they're going to do it at an age that is appropriate, at a time that's right, and with the right person. And I think, it's important to stay with the same person. And, I know that I'm not a prude. I know that there's lots of people that love casual sex and going from relationship to relationship. That's great if that's for them. It's not for me. And I'd prefer not to have that for my kids.
Yeah. I had an interesting situation in my circle of friends a while ago where a friend of mine, him and his wife had open discussions with their children about sex. And then his daughter, 16 years old, had a boyfriend and went to a party and ended up having sex with a boyfriend. And I think it was beautiful that she came home and discussed the experience with her parents.
Yeah.
Asked questions about it. She actually wasn't happy about it, and she actually needed something to process it with. And her parents were there. And especially her father, and he freaked out. but he stayed completely calm, and he answered the questions, and he guided as much as possible. But the openness that girl had, the trust, the relationship with the father to actually talk to him about the experience, ask questions around it, and explain how she felt about it. That was so beautiful. So it's so important to create that environment where the children could come home and ask the questions and discuss whatever the experience was, that they can come home and discuss it in a safe environment.
Well, that's it. I mean, having sex for the first time, it's a huge thing. It's actually going to play, in my opinion, an impact on the rest of your life, on all your sexual relationships, all your emotional relationships. If you have a bad sexual experience, and I can attest to this, it can create problems for most of your life. You know, the fact that I was raped sent me on a very dangerous and horrible path. You know, and I really feel that if your child can come and talk to you about whatever it is, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, and be guided through that, that can really, you can minimize the negative impact of something. You can make sure that something is a good experience, and that it's, you know, it has a positive impact, and that your child has a healthy relationship with sex. And I think that's, I mean, it's really important.
Yeah. Can I just raise a very controversial issue here?
Uh-oh. Yeah, okay. Bring it on.
Seeing that we are controversial already, let us go all in. And that is Shireen's statement about it's also your beliefs and faith. And Shireen, I think
sorry,
that's
say that again. What's Shireen's statement where?
The second one from the bottom says it's also about
your beliefs and faith. Yes.
Yeah. And
okay.
I think it's very important to in households where there is a strong sense of religion, to not just bring the concept of it's a sin into it, but try and explain why, in the context of our religion, it is seen as a sin, and what is a sin, and why it is a sin. Not just it's a sin, you can't do it. To try and give context to what the religious belief is. Again, that will create so much more of a safe feeling for the child, instead of just bringing the fear of hell into the child. And that was my problem. Eventually, when it became more and more clear that I'm actually gay, is that fear that, oh my God, I'm going to burn in hell, my whole family is going to go to heaven. And that absolute fear of sin and isolation and everything that goes with that, and not having the type of relationship where I could go to my parents and ask them about it.
Yeah.
It was absolutely traumatic. My teenage years were really horrific, because I walked around with these feelings and this knowledge, and I had nowhere to go with it.
Yeah.
So Shireen, put it in context for the child. There's nothing wrong with religious belief that it's sin, absolutely nothing. But give them the weight, the essence of that belief. That's
well, the same thing, you know, it's there may be someone that's not religious, but that believes that sex must be reserved for your spouse. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think it's a very nice concept. But if you look at me, I didn't have that option. That was taken away from me.
I wish I had it as well.
Well, there you go. So what do you do with that? You know, must I forever believe that I'm living in sin because I had sex before marriage, but it was not my choice. So, you know, I think it's about opening up the communication channels. It's talking to your child. It's bringing up all this stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's so much that goes into this topic. And here is something else I wanted to bring up. I've been told by some people that if I talk to my children about sex, it's they're going to want to go and do it, which is not what I want. Not what I want. That is not my goal. And I don't think that is what is going to happen, personally. I just don't, I can't see it happening. But I know that that is a common thread of belief for a lot of people, because I've seen people saying it online, that if you start talking to your child about sex before 15, she's going to be like a tramp or something like that, which I just don't understand how that line of thought comes about.
Sorry, I've just now had such an interesting thought in my head, and I love it when my head is such an interesting place. I just love being there. It's like a circus. We talk about our children constantly about eating vegetables.
Yes.
Does that mean that they want to go out and eat vegetables?
Doesn't mean they're going to eat them. With my
Exactly.
son,
So why would it be different with sex? Why would it be different? It's about breaking the stigma. It's about breaking the intrigue around it. Yeah,
definitely. So Freddie, I'm going to ask if anybody wants to join us live on video. Maybe I must just go. Where's my link? Where's my link? How do I get my link? Settings, maybe.
Serene White, I completely agree with you. I really agree with you that I think it's really imperative that open discussion to create an environment between the parent and the child, for us to have that.
Yeah, most certainly. If anybody has got the link already to join, you can click on the link and come live with us on video. I'm just trying to find my link. Freddie, have you got my link? I don't know what to do with my link. Oh, hey, there's an invite thing. Yeah, there's my link. Okay, so if anybody wants to join.
I'm extremely impressed with you and your technology. I am well done, girlfriend. And I am sure our listeners are as impressed as I am.
Thanks. Okay, I've added the link into the comments. So if you want to click on that link, you can actually come live with us on video, and then you can ask some questions, share your experience, or whatever it is you want to bring up. Yeah, but I think that's been quite a good discussion, Freddie. I think we've covered quite a bit over here. Sex for me, it's definitely something that has shaped a lot of my life, in a very negative way. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to bring up is with sex, I think it's about creating a healthy attitude towards sex. And I think, this is not just about, whether you feel ashamed or not. It's about, if you've got an unhealthy attitude towards sex as a male, what's going to happen? We've got such a rape culture, and we've got such a culture of a man that has sex with a lot of women is a stud. A woman that sleeps with more than one person or has sex before marriage is an absolute tramp. Yeah. And there's this whole, it kind of does my pip in. And I think these are things that's going to come up. And this is what you need to shape your children from young. The attitude starts from young. That attitude of, I can take what I want. I can touch what I want. I can do whatever I like. Starts, that doesn't just come in, I think, in your 20s, you suddenly go and rape somebody or molest someone or take advantage. This is something that starts, I believe, from a young age. And I think it's culture. And I think I'm not saying it's the parents' fault if your child becomes a rapist, but I'm saying that, you need to shape your child before somebody else shapes your child. The attitude, you hear boys talking of, and movies and music and, there's so much that comes in. And I think you need to kind of take that bull by the horns and You're laughing at me. It's okay.
I'm not laughing. Again, there's something that popped into my head that I found is, I realized I was old the day that I asked myself the question, do you really have to get out of your clothes to sing a pop song? You know, why do people have to sing in bikinis? Whatever happened to being dressed properly to suit the video? And you know, those are the type of things children are exposed to. It's our responsibility as adults to break that stigma, to break that mold, and we don't have to be prudish about it. It is just to give the information that ultimately that video is a marketing tool. That what we see in media is not real. That is so important. Now,
exactly. I mean, pornography, it's awful.
Absolutely.
And it's not just the woman that feels she's not good enough. It's the guy thinking that's normal. Girls like that. You know, if you treat people like that. And I think it's, you're being laughed at by Shireen now, so nah. You know, you know, and talking about what your children are exposed to, you know, there's so much violence on TV programs that are considered okay for children. Like, I've seen things that have got an age restriction that's suitable for my 6 and 8-year-old, and I watch it and I think, but it's so violent. It's so kind of, I'm not happy with that. I'd rather my children watch something that's got a sex scene in, not pornography, but real love. You know, there's a difference there. And I think people's perceptions and often is a little bit skewed.
Yeah. A very good opening for a sexual conversation is around body image. And when people comment about bodies, body images, things they see in social media, advertisements, and those type of things, I think a healthy sexuality and a healthy body image go very well together. We want our children to grow up being loving themselves enough to make healthy choices for themselves. That is so important. If we can teach them to love themselves, to love their bodies, to have respect for themselves, have respect for their bodies, they won't want to go out and just share their bodies and themselves with anybody. They'll wait for that special person because they have respect for themselves and for their bodies and for other people as well.
I totally agree with you there. And I think my daughter's even made comments before about we eating supper, and she's, I'm not going to eat that potato because it makes me fat. And my heart bleeds. I'm like, it's a potato. And you are perfect. I mean, she's a skinny little perfect thing. And, you know, these things are coming in. It's not coming in from my home. You know, and I just wonder, you know, these outside influences are coming in and telling my daughter not to eat a potato. But there's going to be lots of stuff with sex as well that comes in like this. You know, that's also going to, you know, form her opinion of her body or sex or something like that, or relationships. And it's very scary what we have to contend with. I mean, South Africa's got, I think, one of the highest rape rates in the world. If you look at all the gender-based violence that's going on at the moment. And I can tell you as well that from my rape and from all that shame, most of that resulted in the fact that I was in abusive relationships for the majority of my life. The relationship I'm in now with my husband, he's never raised his voice to me. He's never hit me. He's never emotionally abused me. I mean, I've got issues with him because he doesn't always do the dishes and shit like that. Excuse me. But, you know, let me pick my battle.
While we're talking private, bring it, Lynn.
Yeah, while we're all private over here. Exactly. But, you know, after being raped and because of my attitude towards sex and the way I felt about men, I allowed myself to be physically, emotionally, sexually abused for years. From the age of 15 to the age of 29, I allowed myself to be abused nonstop.
Yeah.
It's the hold that this stuff has on you is absolutely incredible. And then in recovery, after I got clean, I had one relationship where the relationship wasn't bad, wasn't great either. I hope he's not watching. But he was verbally abusive to me once in a car while we were driving, and I got such a fright. And I didn't dump him immediately, but I thought about it for about a week, and I decided I'm not going to take this. And I broke up with him, and I'm very fortunate because so many women stay in these abusive relationships, and the end result is that they are dead. I mean, that pregnant, who's that woman that was found hanging in the tree? That pregnant woman, she was 8 months pregnant, and she's so beautiful.
Now,
I can't
a few
remember
weeks
her
ago,
name.
no, I can't remember, but it is absolutely horrific.
It's shocking. Now, the thing is, this all starts with sex, in my opinion, and the way that your child thinks about herself or himself and sex. If this woman, I mean, I don't know her, but I believe if she, this gender-based violence is not just about the men, it's about the woman. If you love yourself, if you respect yourself, you're not going to stay with these men that kill you. Yeah. They will raise their voice once and they will leave. And the fact is that mentally healthy people don't date mentally unhealthy people. They don't go together. So it goes so much more beyond just having sex and talking about penises and vaginas. This goes beyond, and it affects your whole life.
That's so important, Lynn. If we can contribute to a generation of young people who grow up with a healthy self-esteem, with a sense of loving themselves, and it all comes down to loving themselves enough to make healthy choices for themselves.
Exactly.
It took me to about the age of 50 before I started liking myself enough to make healthy choices for myself.
Wow.
Because until then, and it relates back to sex, because growing up as a gay man who couldn't identify what was going on and felt that it was a sin, and it was wrong, and it couldn't be discussed, and had to be hidden, and everything that goes with that. I grew up with a sense that I don't deserve the earth the air that I breathe.
Yeah.
So how did I go through life? I went through life as an undeserving human being. So you could do anything to me because I didn't deserve it.
There you go.
So it took me a vast amount of work and growth to realize that I am a worthy human being, and therefore I'm worthy to be treated in a certain way. And more than that, I'm worthy to make healthy decisions for myself, because I didn't know that.
That's it. That's exactly it. Awesome. So I don't think anybody's joining us today. I don't know if it's because I made a mistake with the link, or if I don't know how to use my software properly yet. But hopefully in my next video, I'll have live people, as guests. But I think it's a bit scary for people to come live. It took me a while to get going. And of course, talking about sex is maybe not the first way they want to come on a live video. But I do see that there is Shireen, and neither of their husbands.
Shireen, if I'm not mistaken.
Shireen, I don't know how to pronounce that surname, Vates, and Shireen Davids. They both say they got the same issue with their husbands. They don't do the dishes. Damn it.
Me too.
I need to do a whole live on how do you get your husband to do the dishes. I mean, ladies, send your tips, because I've had it. Okay, he respects me. He's amazing. He doesn't shout at me. He's very kind. He's very generous, but he will not wash those dishes. Not unless I absolutely throw my tools.
And it doesn't even help to get a dishwasher.
No, he doesn't get me a dishwasher. I'm like, this is like.
It doesn't help because the thing still has to be packed and unpacked. So
my son and my daughter, when we went to my parents during lockdown, both my kids, my mom's got this lovely dishwasher, and they loved packing and unpacking it. I watched this. I was like fascinated. I'm like, I've got to get one of these babies.
and Mother's Day is gone already. So maybe for one dozen here clean time, Lynn, that deserves a big gift.
Oh yes, I'm going to be 12 years clean. I deserve a gift, John. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Shireen, send your tips. Get your husband to do the dishes and tell me how you did it. I've got to know. Cool. So I'm going to be announcing a winner today for the 100 Rand Takealot voucher. Freddie, do you feel like picking someone?
And how do I do that?
Scroll through the comments, find a lovely lady.
I'm going to close my eyes and scroll, and then where I'm going to stop is going to be the one that's going to win. And that is right between two statements, and both by Shireen Davids.
Oh, Shireen Davids.
Shireen, you go.
Down. That's fantastic.
Congratulations.
Shireen Davids. Great stuff. Shireen, I think I've got your details because I think you've won a competition before. Otherwise, I think she has. No, Shireen, no, she's like one of my #1 fans. I love her to bits.
Oh,
she's
cool.
Always here. So she deserves a win, as always. Shireen, just pop me an inbox on my Facebook page with your email address, and then I will send you a voucher later on today after I go have a bubble bath and a cup of coffee. Cool stuff. Awesome. Ladies, thanks for watching. This is going to go onto my onto a blog about talking about sex with your kids. And I hope you all have a fantastic day. Once again, Freddie, thank you so much for being a guest again. It's always wonderful to have you. Lots of fun. Cool.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Nice meeting you all. Look after yourselves. Bye-bye. Have a good day.